Now, this is an interesting story. In what universe would you ask an authority that charges you to borrow money to please charge me more for that privilege? But a new poll from Nanos Research finds that there's a large group of Canadians who are saying they would mind seeing borrowing costs move higher if it could help tame the hot housing market. Pretty fascinating stuff. Nik Nanos joins us now. He's the chief data scientist and founder of Nanos Research Group. Nik, walk me through these findings.
This new poll that we've done for Bloomberg News asked two things. They asked about whether the rising cost of homes in Canada was a problem or not a problem, and they also asked about interest rates and a plan on interest rates. The numbers that really popped, about 70% of Canadians said that the rising cost of a home is a major problem. That's 10 times more than the Canadians who said that it wasn't a problem. But the big number had to do with interest rates. 49% of Canadians, that's almost 1 out of every 2, supported or somewhat supported the Bank of Canada raising interest rates to cool down the market. It speaks to the environment where, you know what, if the price of a home becomes unattainable, who really cares what the interest rates are? And that the price of homes and affordability is actually top of mind for many Canadians.
It is an interesting finding in the sense that borrowing costs are at historic lows, and it wouldn't kill a lot of people to see them move up a little bit higher. And I think if you think longer term, if you have children, if you're worried about your friends getting into the housing market, you know that things are only getting tougher and tougher. And at some point, we are searching for solutions. And so maybe does this speak a little bit to that Canadians are willing at some point to say, you know what, this may not be completely in my economic advantage, but longer term is going to be better for society, better for my own friends and family.
Exactly. And we're not talking about, Canadians supporting doubling or tripling of interest rates. What Canadians, I think, recognize is that interest rates still remain low, and there's probably movement for them to go up. And if that can help slow down a hot housing market, then it probably means that maybe their kids could afford a house. The interesting thing is that when you start to cut some of the demographic groups, if you happen to be under 35 years of age, you're probably more likely to be worried about rising house prices and more likely wanting to try to get into the market. So they just look at what's going on and they just figure they can't get in. And it speaks to the stress that's on the market and on Canadians right now when it comes to the cost of housing.
That's interesting. Let's break it down a bit by demographics as well, in terms of people saying they wouldn't mind seeing a bit of a taming in the housing market. Did any of those findings sort of defy your expectation? I mean, the standard lore is, the boomers love this because they had bought their houses for next to nothing in the 70s and the 80s when they're getting their life started, and now they're sitting on a mint. Yeah.
Well, actually, the Canadians that were most likely to support interest rates going up are people that are over 35 years of age, and these are individuals that are probably already in the housing market. And you know what? They don't have to worry about it getting hot because they're on the side of the equation that when the value of their home goes up, they're okay. And it's okay for interest rates to go up a little bit because the appreciation in the value is enough. It's Canadians that are under 35 years of age that are kind of worried about things much more. And women are also much more likely to worry about the rising costs of homes and interest rates.
Now, we just had a federal budget. What's the date? Almost a month ago now, we had a federal budget. There were some things in there about housing, but they definitely didn't bring any hammers down in any kind of way. And the polling that you do, this polling and others, how much of this is becoming a pretty pressing issue for politicians to perhaps do something about? And do they just keep the big guns sort of to the side in case there's an election campaign?
Well, what we do know from our polling is that things that affect people's day-to-day lives are more likely to have people's attentions, and the cost of housing is important. The other thing, Greg, as you know, is that during the pandemic, many Canadians have needed to get in a different type of house to live in because now house isn't just a place to hang out and socialize, it's also a place to work. So think of it this way. There are Canadians that are under pressure, believe that they need a larger space, maybe a backyard, a place where they can also work comfortably. And it's difficult for them to do that when the housing market is so hot. And, the other thing is that we shouldn't underestimate what's going on right now speculation related to the housing prices. And if there's a signal that interest rates are going up, it basically boosts short-term demand as people try to rush into the market to try to lock down existing rates because the value and the cost is going up, and they want to get ahead of that so that it's not even more unattainable for many Canadians.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that before when different levels of government, pull those regulatory levers that people have a date to which they have to rush in ahead of time. You do weekly polling, I know, as well about how Canadians feel about the economy coming out of the pandemic, and home prices and their expectations there play a pretty significant role. I guess I'm asking you, how has that been transpiring, and are people quite as optimistic as they used to be about their homes?
Well, they're much more optimistic now about the value of the real estate in their neighborhood compared to a year ago, for sure. And actually, that's been one of the key drivers of consumer confidence over the last 3 months, especially. And we've seen a bit of a plateauing on the real estate front and hesitancy, and we've also seen that actually in the numbers in the Toronto real estate market, where there's been a little bit of a slowdown's the wrong word. It's kind of just stabilizing a little bit. But the fact of the matter is that people still believe that the real estate market is hot. They're interested in seeing what can be done in order to make it more affordable, and interest rates are on the table for 49% of Canadians as one option to at least put a little bit more orderliness in the housing market, which just seems crazy right now.